Phase 1. The hook, heavy, atmospheric music begins. Slow, cinematic shots of dark, towering redwood forests, shrouded in mist. The scale is immense, claustrophobic. The camera pans up a single, impossibly tall tree trunk until it's lost in the clouds. Narrator. There is a unique form of paralysis that precedes every great struggle. It is the cold weight you feel in your gut when you stand at the foot of a mountain you know you must climb. The silence that deafens you when you face a blank page that must become a masterpiece. The quiet dread that settles in when you look at the life you want, and see only the vast, uncharted wilderness between who you are and who you must become. This feeling has a name. We shall call it the Goliath Syndrome. It is the psychological state where the sheer scale of the obstacle convinces you of your own insignificance. It is a preemptive surrender of the soul. And in the next few minutes, I will show you how the forgotten strategy of humanity's most desperate soldiers, forged in a forest of impossible giants, holds the key to defeating it. The key to not just facing the unknown, but mastering it. Beyond the walls, the forest of giant trees. A metaphor for facing the unknown. Phase 2. The problem, visuals shift to more relatable, modern scenes, but shot with the same oppressive, cinematic style. A person staring at a laptop in a dark room. A student looking at a vast library. An artist facing a massive, empty canvas. Narrator. You know this feeling intimately. You have stood at the edge of your own great forest. Perhaps it's a career change. A monolithic wall of new skills to learn, networks to build, and years of effort stretching out before you like a barren desert. You think, where would I even begin? And the question is so enormous, so heavy, that it crushes the very will to find an answer. Perhaps it's a creative project. The book you've always wanted to write. The business you dream of building. You see the finished product in your mind, a towering, perfect structure. But when you look down at your hands, at the single brick you must lay first, the distance between the two seems infinite. And so, the brick remains on the ground. Narrator. The internal experience of the Goliath Syndrome is one of being consumed. Your mind, which should be your sharpest weapon, becomes a traitor. It ceases to be a cartographer, mapping the path forward, and instead becomes a landscape painter, obsessively rendering the terrifying scale of the beast you face. It whispers to you. Look how vast it is. Look how small you are. Look at all the ways you can fail. The fall from that height will be absolute. You are no longer a soldier sizing up an enemy. You are a child in the dark, imagining monsters in every shadow. The problem is no longer the problem itself. The problem is its size. Your perception of its scale becomes the true enemy, a self-generated psychological titan that pins you down before the first blow is ever struck. Narrator. And here is the hidden cost of this paralysis, the consequence that we rarely dare to acknowledge. The true tragedy of the Goliath Syndrome is not the spectacular failure. It is not the climactic battle lost. No. The true cost is the war you never fight. It is the slow, silent erosion of your own potential. It is the book that remains a single sentence. The business that remains a daydream. The life that remains a what if. It is the death of the person you could have become, not at the hands of a monster, but by your own surrender to its shadow. You do not die in a blaze of glory. You simply fade away in the shade of the mountain you refused to climb. Phase 3. The solution. Visuals transition to the world of Attack on Titan. We see the Survey Corps on horseback, riding towards the looming, dark line of the forest of giant trees. The sense of scale is overwhelming. The soldiers look like insects. Narrator. To find the antidote to this paralysis, we must turn our gaze to a place where the metaphorical became brutally literal. The forest of giant trees. For the soldiers of the Survey Corps, this was no simple collection of timber. It was a tactical nightmare. A three-dimensional labyrinth where death could descend from any angle, at any moment. The trees, some reaching over 80 meters into the sky, were so large and dense they blocked out the sun, creating a perpetual twilight on the forest floor. They were a perfect ambush environment for Titans. For a new recruit, entering this place was a confrontation with the Goliath Syndrome in its purest form. The scale was not just intimidating, it was existentially crushing. It was a place designed to make you feel small, helpless, and doomed. And yet, for the veterans, for commanders like Erwin Smith and soldiers like Levi Ackerman, the forest was something else entirely. It was not an obstacle. It was an arena. It was not a tomb. It was a tool. Their secret was a profound strategic and psychological shift. A principle we will call environmental dissection. A diagrammatic animation appears on screen. A solid, menacing shape labeled "the forest" is shown. Then, lines begin to cut through it, breaking it down into smaller, individual shapes labeled tree, branch, clearing, sightline. Narrator. Environmental dissection is the refusal to perceive a challenge as a single, monolithic entity. It is the disciplined act of breaking down an overwhelming environment into a series of individual, manageable, and, most importantly, neutral components. You do not fight the forest. The forest is an abstraction, a concept too large and too complex to be fought. To attempt to do so is to guarantee defeat. Instead, you engage with the trees. This philosophy is built on three core principles. Narrator. First, redefine the arena. A novice looks at the forest and sees a death trap. They see a place where titans hide. Their mindset is that of a victim. The forest is happening to me. A veteran looks at the same forest and sees a complex battlefield, rich with both threat and opportunity. They see a network of potential anchor points for their ODM gear. They see sight lines and blind spots. They see cover and concealment. They see choke points and escape routes. The trees that hide the enemy can also hide them. The canopy that blocks the sun can also block a titan's line of sight. The very elements that create the overwhelming sense of dread are, from another perspective, simply tactical variables to be exploited. This is a fundamental shift from a passive to an active mindset. The environment is no longer a predator hunting you. It is a chessboard, and you are a player. You are not a victim of the terrain. You are an agent within it. By refusing to be intimidated by the idea of the forest, you are free to analyze its reality. Narrator. Second, isolate the immediate variable. The human mind cannot effectively strategize for 1,000 moves at once. Attempting to calculate a path through the entire forest from the outset is a recipe for cognitive overload. This is the very heart of the Goliath Syndrome. Your mind tries to process the whole, and it freezes. The veteran scout knows this. Their operational focus is never on the far side of the forest. It is on the next tree. Where is my next anchor point? Is there a threat behind that trunk? What is the path to that patch of light 50 meters ahead? They shrink their world, their sphere of concern, to what is immediately in front of them and immediately actionable. The grand, terrifying strategic question, how do we survive this forest, is replaced by a series of small, manageable tactical questions. How do I get to that branch? By successfully answering that small question, over and over again, they discover the answer to the large one. They do not conquer the forest in one grand charge. They navigate it, tree by tree, branch by branch. The journey of 1,000 miles is not made by staring at the horizon, but by focusing on the next step. Narrator. And third, weaponize the terrain. This is the final, and most powerful, evolution of the scout's mindset. Once you have redefined the arena and learned to isolate variables, you can begin to turn the environment against your enemy. The giant trees were the primary reason the forest was so dangerous. Their size provided perfect cover for titans. But what were they also? They were the only reason a soldier's ODM gear worked. Without the trees to anchor to, a scout was just a man on a horse, waiting to be eaten. The trees were both the problem and the solution. The very element that defined the scale of the threat was also the fundamental tool for survival and victory. Erwin Smith was the master of this principle. He saw the forest not as a place to be avoided, but as a weapon to be wielded. He understood that the same dense woods that could hide a titan could also be used to trap one. The trees became the bars of a cage he could construct at will. He turned the enemy's greatest advantage into his own. This is the ultimate mastery over the Goliath Syndrome. You no longer just survive the overwhelming environment. You learn to harness its immense power for your own purposes. The mountain you feared becomes the high ground from which you command the battle. Narrator. Think of a surgeon. A surgeon about to perform a complex, 12-hour operation does not see a dying patient. To see the problem in that monolithic way would be paralyzing. Instead, they see organs, veins, tissues, and cellular structures. They see a sequence of precise, distinct, and manageable tasks. They have dissected the overwhelming problem of death into a series of medical procedures. They are not fighting a philosophical concept. They are clamping an artery. They are suturing a wound. They are navigating the trees of the human body. To defeat the Goliath in your life, you must stop looking at the giant. You must become a surgeon of your reality. You must learn to see the trees. Phase 4. The application, the tone shifts to be more direct, instructive. The visuals become more schematic, like a military briefing. We see blueprints, maps, and text overlays. Narrator. This is not mere philosophy. It is a field manual. A practical, operational doctrine for navigating the overwhelming challenges in your own life. We will now equip you with the mental ODM gear you need to enter your own forest of giant trees. Here are 4 tactical exercises drawn from the principles of environmental dissection. Narrator. Step 1. Conduct a terrain reconnaissance by drawing a map. Your first action when facing an overwhelming project is not to take a step forward, but to take a step back and map the environment. The Goliath Syndrome thrives in fog and ambiguity. Your first task is to create clarity. Take your forest, that massive project, that life change, and get it out of your head and onto a piece of paper. Use a mind map, a flowchart, a simple diagram. Do not create a to-do list. A list is linear and fragile. A map shows relationships, territories, and connections. Visually break down the monolithic problem into its constituent trees. What are the major components? What are the known variables, the solid ground? What are the unknown variables, the dark parts of the map labeled, "Here be dragons"? What are your resources? These are your anchor points. List your skills, your allies, your available time, your capital. What are the obvious threats? These are your ambush zones. List the specific risks, the points of likely failure, the things that require special vigilance. Your command is this: draw the map. You cannot navigate a forest that exists only as a formless dread in your mind. By externalizing it, by giving it shape and boundaries, you transform it from a monster into a territory. You are no longer lost within it, you are now observing it. This is the first step to reclaiming agency. Narrator. Step 2. Define your next anchor point. A scout in the forest is not thinking about the final extraction point. They are thinking about the next stable branch that can hold their weight. You must do the same. Look at the map you have just drawn. Look at all the components, the tasks, the territories. Now, ignore almost all of it. Your only job is to ask one question. What is the single, most immediate, and most achievable action I can take to move from my current position to the very next point of stability? This is not the most important task. It is not the biggest or the most impressive. It is simply the next one. It might be sending a single email. It might be writing a single paragraph. It might be making a single phone call. It might be lacing up your running shoes and stepping out the door. This becomes your singular focus. Your entire world shrinks to this one anchor point. The rest of the forest, with all its terrors and uncertainties, ceases to exist for the next hour. Your command is this: select one. By focusing all your energy on securing that next anchor point, you bypass the paralysis of choice. You generate momentum. And momentum is the lifeblood of any long expedition. The journey through the forest is not a single leap, but the sum of 1,000 successful attachments to 1,000 different branches. Narrator. Step 3. Practice situational silence. The forest is loud. The roar of the unknown, the whispers of your own self-doubt, the cacophony of outside opinions. It is a storm of noise that clouds judgment. A soldier who cannot distinguish the rustle of the wind from the snap of a twig is a dead soldier. You must create tactical pauses. Deliberate moments of zero input. This is not meditation for the sake of peace or relaxation. This is a strategic tool. For 15 minutes a day, place yourself in a state of complete sensory ceasefire. No phone. No music. No books. No podcasts. No planning. Just you and the terrain of your current situation. In this silence, your mind will stop reacting and start observing. The signal will begin to separate from the noise. The truly important threats will distinguish themselves from the imaginary ones. You will start to notice things you missed in the chaos. A new path, a hidden resource, a flaw in your own thinking. A scout deep in enemy territory knows the value of stopping, staying perfectly still, and just listening to the forest. It is in those moments of silence that the enemy's position is often revealed. Your command is this: schedule 15 minutes of tactical silence. Use it to listen to the rhythm of your own personal battlefield. What you hear may save your entire campaign. Narrator. Step 4. Log your expedition reports. When you are deep in the forest, it is easy to feel lost. It is easy to feel like you are making no progress at all. The trees look the same, the canopy is oppressive, and the destination feels no closer than when you started. This feeling drains morale and is the ally of surrender. To counter this, you must keep a rigorous record of the terrain you have already covered. At the end of each day, open a simple logbook or a text file. Write down one, and only one, sentence. That sentence must describe the single anchor point you secured that day. Not, "I worked on my novel." That is too vague. Instead, "Today, I completed the character sketch for the protagonist." Not, "I looked for a new job." Instead, "Today, I updated my resume and sent it to 3 companies." Not, "I worked on my business." Instead, "Today, I finalized the logo design." This practice reframes your entire perception of progress. You are no longer measuring yourself against the infinite distance to the edge of the forest. You are, instead, building a tangible, undeniable record of the territory you have successfully navigated. On days when you feel lost, when the Goliath Syndrome returns and tells you that you are making no progress, you open the log. You read the dozens, or hundreds, of entries. You look at the long list of anchor points you have secured. This log becomes a psychological bulwark. It is the proof that, no matter how lost you feel, you are moving. It is your map of the ground you have conquered. Your command is this: keep the log. It is your proof of life in the wilderness. It is the testament to your own relentless, forward movement, one tree at a time. Phase 5. The proof. Visuals return to the climactic chase scene in the forest of giant trees. The female Titan is running, and the Survey Corps are in pursuit. The editing is fast and chaotic, reflecting the perspective of the terrified soldiers. Narrator. The proof of this doctrine is not theoretical. It is written in blood and sacrifice, deep within the woods that housed humanity's greatest fears. Consider the 57th Expedition Beyond the Walls, and Commander Erwin Smith's audacious plan to capture the female Titan. To the average soldier, the situation was chaos. A seemingly unstoppable, intelligent Titan was tearing through their ranks. The forest was a confusing green hell. They were reacting, panicking, dying. They saw only the Goliath. They were trapped in the overwhelming whole. But Erwin was not. In his mind, the forest had already been dissected. He was not seeing chaos, he was executing a precise, multi-stage plan based on the principles we have discussed. The visuals slow down, becoming more analytical. Blueprints and tactical overlays are drawn over the scenes from the show. Narrator. He redefined the arena. To everyone else, the forest was the female Titan's advantage, a place for her to hide and ambush. To Erwin, it was a weapon of his own choosing. He deliberately led the enemy into this terrain, not in spite of the danger, but because of it. The giant trees were not just obstacles, they were the pillars of his trap. He isolated the immediate variable. His orders to his soldiers were a masterclass in this principle. He did not tell them the grand plan. To do so would have invited debate, fear, and hesitation. Instead, he gave them a series of simple, immediate commands. Ride forward, maintain formation, fire the signal flares. Each soldier was only responsible for their next anchor point, their immediate tactical action. They were spared the paralyzing weight of the larger strategy, allowed to focus entirely on execution. And finally, he weaponized the terrain. The climax of his plan was not just to fight in the forest, but to turn the forest itself into a weapon. The hundreds of pre-installed grappling hooks, the nets, the blades, they used the very trees that gave the forest its terrifying scale as the infrastructure for their cage. The environment itself became an active participant in the capture. He turned the enemy's fortress into its prison. The temporary capture of the female Titan, a feat previously thought impossible, was the direct result of this mindset. Erwin Smith defeated the Goliath not by matching its strength, but by refusing to see it as a Goliath in the first place. He saw only a collection of tactical variables to be manipulated. He saw the trees. Narrator. This is not a fantasy. This principle is a cornerstone of effective strategy throughout human history. The German military called it Auftragstaktik, or mission command. Their philosophy was that no general can possibly understand the entirety of a chaotic, fluid battlefield, the forest. To try and micromanage every unit from a central command post is to guarantee failure. Instead, they gave their officers a clear objective, the commander's intent, and then trusted them to make their own decisions on how to achieve it based on the immediate terrain they faced. They empowered their soldiers to focus on the next tree, trusting that the sum of these intelligent, localized decisions would lead to strategic victory. It is the same principle used by elite wildfire fighters. They do not try to extinguish an entire raging inferno at once. That is impossible. They perform an environmental dissection. They identify a strategic ridge, a river, a road. They focus all their efforts on creating a firebreak, a single, defensible line. They isolate a manageable part of the problem and solve it decisively. They conquer the fire not by fighting the whole, but by starving it, one section of terrain at a time. The logic is undeniable. The human mind is a powerful tool, but it has limits. It is designed for focused, sequential problem solving. The Goliath Syndrome is the result of feeding this tool a problem that is too large, too abstract, and too complex all at once. The system shorts out. The strategy of environmental dissection is a way of honoring those limits. It is a disciplined system for breaking down the impossibly large into the humanly manageable. It is a retreat from the overwhelming whole, to achieve tactical victory in the immediate part. And victory, in any great war, is nothing more than an accumulation of small, tactical wins. It is the path through the forest, forged one tree at a time. Phase 6. The call to action. The visuals become slow and majestic again. Sweeping, beautiful but somber shots of a massive, ancient forest at dawn. The light is breaking through the canopy. Narrator. We all stand at the edge of such a forest. A place of great challenge, and great potential. The Goliath Syndrome would have us stand there forever, paralyzed by the scale of what lies ahead, and mourn the life we were too afraid to live. But the scouts have shown us another way. Not a way of reckless courage, but of intelligent, focused, and relentless action. The way of the mapmaker. The way of the surgeon. The way of the strategist. The forest does not need to be your tomb. It can be your proving ground. Narrator. Now, we turn the reconnaissance on ourselves. Every great campaign begins with naming the objective. Naming the battlefield. So, in the comments below, tell us, what is the name of your forest of giant trees? You don't need to share the details. Just give it a title. The doctorate, the marathon, the first year of parenthood, the reconciliation. Naming the forest is the first step to seeing the trees. Let us bear witness to the great challenges we are all preparing to face. Narrator. This is the reality of the human struggle. To understand it, we must be willing to look into the abyss without flinching. If you are one of those who does not turn away, then subscribe, and join the ranks of Beyond the Walls. Narrator. The fear you feel when facing the forest is only one half of the psychological equation. The other, equally dangerous half, is the arrogance that can lead you to underestimate it. To understand that fatal flaw, you must watch our analysis next, The Fall of Reiner. A study in the God complex. The link is on your screen. The expedition continues.